Welcome back to the Provoking Prosperity Podcast. Today's guest is Equanimous. I have met Equanimous a few times within the circle of ecstatic dance, a part of that journey with learning to reconnect to movement and my body in a way that is loving and compassionate and more internal than previously when I used to move and dance. This episode is so packed with insights and ahas and provocation and fun and light and depth. As I go back and listen to the episodes, I look back at their chart and I reconnect to certain aspects of the chart as I'm able to witness them being in that energy. So I want to make a few notes here for your awareness. Equanimous has the gate 36 in his conscious sun. Gate 36 is in the emotional solar plexus. He has all of the gate defined except for 2 in the emotional solar plexus. Emotional solar plexus is all about emotion. It is all about creativity. That means he has an emotional wave. He feels deeply. He's deeply creative. And with a 36 in his sun, has to go with deep, deep emotions. And as you'll notice when we're talking, he talks about how he used to use these deep emotions within his craft, within his art. But now he has realized that these deep emotions are for him to move through on his own through his meditation, because he wants to bring out bliss to the world. He wants to bring out joy to the world, which is interesting because he has the 37 in his unconscious North Node. The North Node represents what your soul is here to do. And he has the 37 in the North Node. The North Node is all about peace. It is all about peace within oneself so that you bring peace or witness peace externally. He also has the 37 in his Mercury, which is what he's here to talk about, which he shares a lot about. And in his other Mercury in the unconscious, it's the 58, which is all about mastery of peace, mastery of his music, mastery of his creativity, of his bliss that he can bring out into the world. His conscious North Node is in 55, which is abundance, trusting in the abundance and overflow of life. In his North Node, he is here to step into peace and abundance. I love his uniqueness. A lot of the things that he talks about is about his music and how he just knows. And there's so much creativity in his chart. It's just who he is. He exudes it when he is at peace within himself. And when he talks about meditation, he tells us that he goes into these meditative states so that he can move through this, so that he can bring joy and mastery, which again is 58 in the Mercury. He's talking about joy and mastery out into the world. I hope you laugh. I hope you learn something. And if you have anything that comes up for you at all, whether it's a question or an aha or a feeling, please reach out, or better yet, go onto Apple Podcasts, leave a review and share how this episode connected with you. This is why I bring these beautiful creatives on, is not only to share their creative process and their beauty to connect with others to the world, but also for you, so then you get to feel, you get to get triggered, you get to have an aha moment, you get to feel. I'm going to say that again, you get to feel the feeling, and that's why creativity is so important. It brings us back to our body. It brings us back to feeling. I hope you enjoy. Let's dive in.
Do you spend all of your time building and maintaining your business so that you achieve the success you envision? Do you feel frustrated, unfulfilled, and have a loss or a disconnect from your creative flow? Are you a conscious leader that is ready for change when it comes to society's views on money, wealth, relationships, and what prosperity truly means? If so, you are in the right place. Welcome to the Provoking Prosperity Podcast. I am your host, Miranda Mitchell. I am a 2-4 mani-gen who is here to empower and equip you to step out of the box of social norms, guide you into using your voice for inspiration and impact, and support you in finding what prosperity means for you so that you have the business and life that fulfills you. So grab that cup of coffee, get comfy, and get ready to hear the heartwarming and heart-wrenching personal stories, all things human design and jinkies, plus tangible practices that you can implement right now for your personal and business growth.
Hello, beautiful souls. This is Miranda Mitchell with the Provoking Prosperity Podcast. Today, I'm very excited to bring on Equanimous. I've had the pleasure of dancing through the music and the muse. So grateful. Thank you so much for being here, Equanimous.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me.
First question is going to be, because of the brilliance of the music and everything that you bring and the intensity and the emotion around the music, I would love for you to share how your intense emotional experiences influence your music production and your performance.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you for this. So I feel like the intense emotional experiences that I have had in my life have typically resulted in catharsis and joy, meaning that even when I've had really tough times, I don't feel like I've landed. I feel like a lot of people don't really want to land in a tough time. I have landed in the joyous catharsis of that. And so what I mean by that is it's like the tough time has made the good times even better. And in that, there is this sense of deep connection to the world and spirit and nature and the universe and God. And from that place, I feel like there is this specific kind of emotional joy or freedom or just like this beauty that comes from that. And that beauty, I feel like I got to experience a lot throughout my life thus far because I would allow myself to be thrown into different emotional states and things like this. Now I'm much more grounded, so it's a little different. But those experiences have been very rooted in me, those joyous experiences. And so from that catharsis, I'm holding this sense of deep joy and connection that I feel is the base or the basis for my music.
This just makes my heart happy when I'm able to connect with people who are so in alignment with their authenticity and who they are as far as their energy. Your gate 36, which is in your sun, is all about emotional depth. It is about going into having crisis and enjoying the crisis and understanding it's there for an experience. And then for you to bring that out into the world, that's exactly what you're here to do so people can feel through that. I've always found with all the people that I connect with, it's always a connection to nature, a connection to self, having that time to know who you are rather than the chaos that lives outside of us when we look externally. In what ways do you channel your emotions into your musical creations?
I typically don't. When I was like sad or angry or whatever, experiencing something negative, you could say, growing up, of course, I wrote music and I was really into emo. That's what that is. It fuels that in a lot of ways. Now, if I'm feeling sadness or anger or frustration or whatever it is, shame, I don't know, any kind of negative emotion, there's lots of negative emotions, but if I happen to be feeling one, I stop. I don't do anything and I just sit and meditate and I feel and I do my best to feel it all the way through. Now, if I have a show that night, of course, I go play the show, come back to meditating, and I really just meditate until I feel like it's either past or I have a plan for it, but I don't put it in my music anymore. And the reason is because I don't want to do that. That's not my brand. That's not who I am. I think there's plenty of music out there that is resonant with fear, and it makes people feel connected when they listen to it, or sadness because they're sad and they're going, and that's beautiful and it can be great. That's just not my style. It's not what I'm here for. For me, what lights me up is more of my higher excitement is that kind of cathartic joy and love and unity and connection and fun and playfulness. And those things are where I write music from. To me, a lot of those things aren't really emotion. I tend to see that like when I'm happiest, I guess happiness is an emotion, but I think the weight and the depth I find in fear than there is in like joy. Or sadness can be like a way bigger weight than joy. Joy is much lighter. So I guess it is an emotion. I do make music from that place. If I'm in a silly mood, we have this track called Sushi that we made, and Ruby, Chase, and I made, and it's silly, it's fun. It's like, why did we even think of that? It came just from a place of like emptiness almost, because we were just smiling and there was emptiness and the joy came through and then this came through. So I just try to avoid creating if I am feeling energies that I don't want to spread or share. My practice for that is not using art to move through it. You can do that. It's just not for me. Sometimes maybe I'll play piano to myself and it'll be sad and I won't record it or something, but that's rare. And typically I just meditate and I'm still in moments of that. And then I save the music for when I'm in moments of joy and feeling clear.
And I love that because emotions, like you said, there's heaviness and lightness, and emotions are, I think, another way you can look through emotions. It is creativity that's wanting to be expressed. You have a lot of creativity in your chart, like the most, I think, that I've ever seen in a chart. I think there's 2 activations that is not defined in your chart as far as the creativity at the emotional solar plexus. And that brings into your diverse instrumental skills. How do you push the boundaries with your instrumental skills in your genre with music?
I don't think of it like that, but I guess I do that. So I appreciate that reflection. For me, an instrument, it really is a sound. You can have some amazing sounds on a keyboard or a synthesizer. In fact, you can have a cellist, violinist, record some strings, and then you can play it on the keyboard. And so you're technically playing the keyboard, but you're playing a different sound. So it's like, there's all these different sounds that one can make. I happen to lean more toward the organic electronic experience in that, or dance music experience, in that I've got all these different cool instruments and drums lying around everywhere and guitars. And there's all these little things that I like to record with. And I like to bring real life sounds into my music. I don't think, hey, I'm going to push a boundary. I just hear the song and it wants that sound, then I do it. So I guess to answer your question, I push the boundaries musically by default or by accident.
Just because that's who you are and that's what you're
just what I like. I'm not thinking about that at all. I'm not thinking, oh, let me see like what kind of cool sounds I can hear. I'm just hearing the song first. And then I'm like, all right, how do I get to that sound?
So what is the process of turning that raw idea, that sound, into a musical piece that resonates with your audience?
How do I turn the raw idea? You mean like, how do I turn the idea that I hear in my head into like actual music?
Yes.
It's like instant. I don't know. It's if I were to say to you, think about a cow and now say the word cow, you just be like, cow. So it's, if I hear something in my head and play it, I'll be like, okay. And then I just play it. I just do it. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. It's a sense of being and sense of knowing, which you're very intuitive. So your spleen is totally open, which means you're very intuitive, so intuitive that you probably don't even realize how intuitive you are. So you just know it and then you just do it. And how has that supported you in your evolution with producing and gaining the wide variety of your audience?
Yeah, it's definitely made things a little easier in terms of being able to pump out a lot of music because I can write songs so quickly because I just hear them. And I think it provides like a fun factor too. Like being a DJ, I also play live keys and live drums and different things and guitar sometimes that I think is more engaging with people. I think that's like any instrumentalist. I feel like I could probably do more of it. I can hear a song and then just play it. And I have not really done any videos online of me doing that. I could go up to the street and be like, hey, name a song and I'll play it. And I'm sure those videos would do pretty well. And I haven't really done that. I will say that I think there's a lot of untapped potential in what you just said that I just haven't explored, but maybe it should.
You have the Channel 8 one, which is all about authenticity. Have you always known who you are and expressed your pure authenticity? Because a lot of people with this channel actually have a hard time because they can be so different that sometimes they hold it back to fit in or to be in a box.
As a kid, now I do for sure, doing lots of healing work. And now I feel committed to that, especially because I can feel the difference of what is not that, which I had done as a kid. And I feel like I could see that in other people when they're doing that as well. It's interesting. It's like people, the word authenticity is the highest frequency. Even though my song says the highest frequency is love, it's really authenticity. I feel like in order to be authentic, in order to deepen your levels of authenticity that you express, you need to have awareness. You need to know yourself, because a lot of times people are being as authentic as they can be, but overall it's not very authentic. And so growing up, I definitely tried to fit in different ways and tried to people please and be cool and do things that were not necessarily me to fit in, to get what I wanted, to get girls, to have friends, to be invited to parties, whatever. And it's interesting because the reflections that I got growing up was that it was actually manipulative. And I do feel like I was relatively manipulative by accident as a person growing up. And then once I became aware, I got to see, oh, am I being manipulative right now? And I think just through shedding and layers and layers and layers, and also doing some like medicine work that I feel helped me on a deeper cellular level. Through all that, I feel like I was able to get to where I am now, which of course I would assume that more layers will unpeel, even though at this point it's more growing my communication skills of how I can express myself. And then from there, unpeeling the layers, but who knows, there might be more, and I'm open. And I think there probably is at different and deeper levels. But that definitely was something, not like a major thing, but definitely a thing for me growing up. Different once I think started following my Dharma, really following my Dharma, and doing that is probably one of the most healing things that has happened to me, because of all the healing things that came from me just following my path and what I feel like I have been guided to do.
What was the hardest thing for you to, I guess, decondition or let go of? Because I feel like we're all conditioned. We're all conditioned throughout our entire lives. And there's definitely layers, like you said, and the layers and layers are coming. But then there's even the potential of what can I be? What can I create? That more potential. So what was the hardest thing you struggled with as far as deconditioning or finding that authenticity so that you can be and do what you're doing now?
Yeah, I would say just like surrendering to what is on deep levels. And there have been different hard things. There have been like hard things that are like painful, and there have been hard things that are like uncomfortable, but not necessarily that painful. You know what I mean? And yeah, lots of different healing things, from watching healing YouTube videos to men's work to sitting in ceremonies to medicine to all different things, really learning from people, just mentors. I don't know. There have been different hard things. It would really, to compare them, they're so different. I would really have to like drop in and to give you a proper answer. I think probably the hardest was just my fear that I experienced as a teenager and having to get over that because it was so long. It took so long to get over that, just certain life fears and insecurities and things like this. But the healing things from that were really life experiences and reflections I had in other people, and people who have made me feel safe and okay to let go and things like this. But overall, I would say just the general aspect of surrendering to what is, especially if you've built up a certain reality of what is not, and then having to let that creative, imaginatory reality that you thought was real, having to let that go, that can be hard, you know?
The surrendering and then even the unfolding of life.
It's one thing to, if if I go and I don't know, once I was sick, I got COVID during a show. All right. And it wasn't that important of a show, thank God, but I still wanted to be there and I had to surrender to it and be like, all right, nothing I can do about this. Not super easy or super hard, but certainly a lot easier to surrender to that than to surrender to, oh, for the last 20 years, I thought life was this way, or I thought I was this way. And so much of my life experience has been from this thing. And then learning, I'm just giving a hypothetical, but then learning, oh no, that's actually not. And I've been avoiding life. And now I have to accept life. And that dissonance between who the reality that you found yourself in and the reality of what is can be painful and uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. It means your body's work. So there's a difference in terms of what you've built for yourself, whether it's real or not. Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes total sense, because when we are younger, believe authority figures, our mom or our dad, they say something, we believe it, then we create a higher life around that belief, when they could have meant totally something different than how you took it. So then you created this whole persona of who you are based on this belief that is not even true. That's where the deconditioning comes.
Yeah. And you need to move, the body needs to move through that on an actual cellular level. Your mind can move through it, your energy can move through it, and your emotions can move through it. But I found that you also need to move through it on an actual DNA and cellular level, which you can do through food, purging, medicine work, running, or whatever. Yeah. There's lots of different ways, but I do find that there are multiple systems within this one system of a human that need to ultimately process. Now, sometimes only the mind needs to, or only the heart needs to. And you don't even need to think about it. You could be like, what was that? There's different things. But if they're really deeply rooted, I have found, at least for me, that my most cathartic experiences have happened when there's actual physical transmutation happening.
We are in this physical realm, right? We have this physical body. We keep everything within our body. We have to be able to release it. And I agree. It depends how deeply rooted it is. If you've been dealing with something since age 4, and the repetition is over and over, think about that, 35 years or whatever years of that same cellular level of frequency living within your body. You have to release it.
There are things that I feel like I really couldn't have done without different healings and ceremonies and things like this, and the support of others. I feel like I wouldn't have done it without the support of others. I guess if there were others, could I have done it with the support of God and spirit and my own inner knowing? Probably, maybe, I don't know. But other people can help too. It's okay.
And we all are connected, and it's important that we, yes, we have that support. We have that extra push or love or compassion for someone when we're struggling.
Yeah.
So let's go back to your music, because in your music, you mentioned that you bring in instruments, which I've witnessed. You do beatboxing, looping. So how much of that helps you create that high vibrational atmosphere within your performances?
Some, but not all, because it depends on the setting of the performance. For example, if it's a daytime, people just chilling and they want to watch and be entertained, it's going to be a better experience if I'm just playing keys, playing drums, singing, live looping, doing a bunch of different things, because it's less of a dance space. People can still dance, but it's not about that. It's more about, I am the performer and people are watching me, and it is my job to entertain. And then in some settings, it's not about me at all. It's about the experience on the dance floor. It's about people dancing with each other. It's about the vibe. It's about having extremely tight and smooth transitions, where it might be to my disadvantage maybe to be focusing on a live sound, because people aren't really looking at me and all they care about is the experience and looking at each other and dancing with each other. And in that space, obviously a DJ set is much more appropriate, where there could be no live instrumentation besides maybe some beatboxing here and there, singing or something like this. And it really depends on the vibe and the setting of the space. But what I can say is that what instruments can do is they can help amplify whatever that vibe is.
Do you have a favorite way to perform?
I'm still figuring that out. It depends on the space. I love doing sunrise sets. I think it's so fun, and people are just floaty and happy, and everyone's very receptive to pretty music then. At 2 a.m. party night, I can't really play certain pretty tracks because people want to get down, they want to party, they want to get thrown around with bass, which is fun also. It's hard to say what my favorite is. I don't know. I feel like my favorite hasn't actually happened yet. I feel like my favorite is going to be the nighttime party sets with people who know me well enough and are receptive to the pretty stuff, where I can have guitarists on stage and a full drum circle of people and singers and dancers and all this. So I don't think it's actually happened yet. But I hope it does.
Yeah, and every experience unfolds even more beauty as you do all the different performances.
Sure. Yeah.
What's the underlying message of your purpose with your music?
Yeah, I would say I've always gone with this line, bringing the consciousness to the party and bringing the party to the consciousness. And I really believe in consciously celebrating. I think it's like one of the most fun things in life to do. I want to provide a very high vibe space for conscious people to party. And I want to provide a space for partiers to be conscious in their partying. But it does rely around, I guess, the word party or celebration. Really, celebration is the word that I like resonate with the most, I think, in this space. Even in a sunrise set, you're not necessarily partying, but you're still celebrating, you're enjoying, you're having fun. It's really about like delight and love and bliss.
And a feeling. When we were talking earlier about the emotional aspect, it was all about feeling. And I've said this numerous times. I feel like a lot of society is numb. They're numb to distractions. They're numb to busyness. They're afraid of feeling. They're afraid of feeling even love. Like everyone wants to feel love. They don't want to feel the depth of love, because then if something happens, then they lose it and they're afraid they're going to feel.
Which, by the way, I attribute almost 99% of towards ingredients that you put in your body. Personally, it's my belief.
Really? Go into that a little bit. Share with us.
Well, so I've shared this before. So there's two things. There's the energy behind what I'll say are bad food, which came from the tobacco industry, right? Like the tobacco industry, they bought like Kraft and like all these brands that like just are feeding you with poison and junk that are addictive, right? So really bad for your system. And which, by the way, I don't think tobacco is bad, is all that bad, can be, but like pure organic tobacco leaf, I do not think is that bad. It's, in fact, nicotine. There are plenty of studies on how nicotine is actually really good for you, helps prevent Alzheimer's, all these things. You can look it up, brain functioning. But that's one side of things. And then the main side of things, or the side of that sort of, people are starting to wake up to that, I feel like, more and more. But the main side of things that I feel like is causing a lot of these diseases and just a lot of things is poison. It's pesticides. And pesticides originated back in Nazi Germany, when Bayer originally created the gases that killed the Jews in Nazi Germany. And when the Holocaust was over, they were like, what do we do now? What do we do? And so they started creating Roundup, which is one of our first pesticides using glyphosate. And of course, there are conspiracy theories and arguments on they still want to ethnically cleanse and kill people, which is why there's way more like natural organic food, not in places like America or whatever, and why America subsidizes pesticides, conventional food, but not organic. Of course, makes zero sense for people's health, but makes all the sense in supporting people's sickness, which of course, then I'm not saying I believe this, but conspiracy theorists would probably say that the pharmaceutical companies with big money wants people to be sick. People buy their products more. I've researched it, and this is what I think. Although it is true that Bayer there are certain facts, like Bayer did create Roundup through did buy Monsanto, and they are the company that provided lots of the poisonous gases that killed the Jews in Nazi Germany. They'll argue on maybe the why, and I really don't know. It could be an accident. It could just be like, oh, how do we make money? I don't think that these companies are out to kill people. Personally, I know there's conspiracy theorists that will say, oh, there's depopulation and all these things. I don't actually believe that. I don't know what is truly going on, but I don't really think there's people trying to depopulate them. I think ultimately maybe, but if anything, they just see that they're going to make more money on a sick person than they are a healthy person. So it's just business, right? And until there's laws changed, praying for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be president, although it's unlikely, but until someone like that comes into office and changes the laws to be like certain other countries, Russia's banned GMOs, that kind of thing, I most likely It's not going to change fast. I do think it will change over time just through natural evolution, is people will start resonating more with eating organic. People will start to realize that putting pesticides in the human system is not good for the human system necessarily. I think that, to just bring it back, I do feel like foreign substances, whether it's medication, food, lots of different things, are what is causing what you would call being numb. And I think that from there, people are then inspired to, oh yeah, let's advertise alcohol to make people more numb. And it's just things that are what they are will attract more of that thing, unless create the negative experience, in which case that thing will then seek out something positive. Personally, I think that these are the number one culprits for what you speak of. I don't think that the solution is to necessarily try and make people awake or aware through experiences and like pushing authenticity versus being numb or anything like this. I think those are good things to do on the side, but I think there will be a more rapid growth of consciousness and awareness if we go more towards the root. And I think the root is not fear or love. It could be. I think the honest root is foreign substances that people put in their bodies. 99% of America does not only eat organic food. Even my friends who say, oh yeah, I only eat organic food. No, they're 80% or 50%. You know what I mean? Even I'm not 100%. When I go to a restaurant and I make sure all the food's organic, there very well may be ingredients in there that are not.
And it's all for material gain, money, selling. So the frequency of the food that we eat is the frequency that we put out into the world. So how can we love and how can we connect to consciousness if we're not organic ourselves, if we're constantly taking in the pesticides?
However, I will say there is one exception that I have noticed.
What is that?
It's actually alcohol. I don't really drink alcohol. I don't think it's good for the system. But for those who are eating McDonald's every day and fast food and all these things, I actually think alcohol is good for their system. And the reason is because it helps them purge and cleanse. And so it comes with the negative effects also, but alcohol also has a positive effect, which is that it cleanses out your system. Like, it's alcohol. That's what alcohol does. And so I see all these famous people that are like eating like shit. And I'm like, how do they do it? And I'm like, oh, because they drink a lot. So they're not necessarily not numb. They're still numb. But I do honestly think that if you're going to eat McDonald's, it's healthier to eat McDonald's and drink than it is to eat McDonald's and not drink.
That makes so much sense, because you see these people that eat McDonald's, eat like crap, and then they're drinking. It's like, how are they sustaining themselves? How are
because they're drinking? Because they're cleansing their systems. Even though they're adding a lot of shit to it through the alcohol, they're still tearing up all that bad shit with, whether it's vodka or tequila or beer. Beer is extremely probiotic, especially if you have an IPA or something like that. Because of the fermentation, it does help your gut. Now, it will also hurt your liver, and you're probably adding more bullshit corn syrup to your system if you're doing that, but you're still cleansing in a way. So I think certain bodies work in certain ways, and I'm not in any way recommending alcohol at all. I don't vibe, but at least it can help with people who are just eating toxic chemicals all the time.
And when you reflect on that, it does make sense, because it seems like the people that are just consuming all of the crap are fine, whereas people that are eating organic and then drink, it affects them much.
Way more. Oh my God. I had a beer and a half the other day at a wedding, and the next morning I just didn't feel great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, why did I do that?
Yeah. That's an interesting thought. So I wanted to bring it back to your music and DJing. And we talked about your personal growth and going into some of the things that you've done for your personal growth. How do you think being a music producer and being a DJ and being able to facilitate these experiences has helped you with your personal growth and self-awareness?
It's like anything. It can be a challenge to, example, like the first time, like when I played Red Rocks and there was like, whatever, 4,000 or 5,000 people there. It's like nervous. I wasn't like super nervous, but way more nervous than I would have been just playing in front of 500 people. And I'm just using that as an example because the next night I played again in front of a similar crowd, and the next night again in front of a similar crowd in Seattle. In fact, I think the Seattle crowd was even bigger. And it settled my nerves. I wasn't nervous because I had just done rhythm. So that's like an example of through experience, the inner system will change. Just like anything. When I was younger, I would say felt like I was more entitled and I tell the sound people off and I deserve this and blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like, no, these are people, like treat them with respect here. Let's be kind. We're all on the same team. Don't have to be a diva. And so just like their experiences, everybody goes through experiences. I don't even know if it has to do with like my music personally. It's just my career. It's when you do things, you learn and you get better at those things.
It's stepping into the uncomfortable over and over. It's like,
and a lot of times you don't realize that you're stepping into the uncomfortable. Like something might feel comfortable and then there's a result that happens and you're like, oh, this feels. And then through that space, the uncomfortable just gets to be more and more comfortable. In the same way that people say that when you're being authentic, when you're being vulnerable, you're not actually being vulnerable because you're creating invulnerability. And it's like anything else, the more vulnerable you are, the more invulnerable you become. And it's just like the same thing with anything having to do with being yourself. The more authentic you are, the more authentic you are. You learn what is not. And I would also argue that the more inauthentic you are, the more authentic you become. And the reason is because you get to watch that. I guess that's not actually true if you're like completely unaware. So maybe not that. Maybe not what I just said. But right. Thing about being vulnerable, being invulnerable, that one, let's go with that.
Yeah, let's go with that one. That one's too. The inauthentic, I don't know, because like when I was younger, I was definitely inauthentic. I didn't know who I was. I tried to pretend and all that, and I felt lost.
If you're not aware,
right,
it doesn't apply. I do feel like if you are aware, it does apply because you get to be like, oh, I just did something that felt bad. And then you feel bad about it, which then triggers your system to not do that thing. The emotional guidance system, like we feel bad, we learn to not do the bad thing. We feel good, we learn to do the good thing. It's just having a healthy system. In fact, if you do a bad thing and feel good about it, it means your system's not working.
I wanted to touch on the uncomfortable again because I feel like, and I would like to know how you continue in your evolution as far as being a DJ, as far as your performances, learning music. How are you stepping into the uncomfortable so that you continue to grow? Because if we stay stagnant and comfortable, we don't grow, right?
Yeah, so pride and the ego is extremely helpful, right? Like we always have an ego. Everybody has an ego. If you don't, you're dead, most likely. Or you're just like not a self and you're like identifying as something other than a human because humans have egos, right? To my knowledge and to what I know. So it's just about shifting that. It's about shifting the pride into being able to have pride in being able to overcome uncomfortable things. Like your ego will grow the more uncomfortable you get through. And so it's important, I feel like, when doing that to feel that pride. And I think anyone who goes through something uncomfortable and comes out of the other side and feels comfortable about it, they're like, yes, I did this. Yeah. And they could celebrate or whatever it is. Or they don't celebrate and they just feel it in their system and it boosts their ego. But I do think that it is the ego that helps us to go through discomfort in order to grow and build itself up to be able to be a being that can do that. You can say, oh, I can go through something uncomfortable. You know what I mean? That's a weird way of saying it, but I do think that it is the ego and pride that can help drive that.
A lot of people have this image of ego as a negative thing.
And I have pride. My ego is stoked that I can say that it's good. To me, there's like lots of parts of the ego. If I'm too good for school, my music's so good and everybody loves me. That's one evolution of ego. But the actual higher evolution of ego is, oh my God, I don't need to express myself like that. And I'm humbled. The ego can grow through humility. I do think that there is a good first step in saying, hey, I better watch my ego. That's a good step so that you're aware of your ego and you're an aware human being. But there's greater evolution in the ego and in the human psyche and in human beings that are just more evolved. And one of those evolved things is accepting that there is an ego, that humans have an ego, and to learn to use it. It's like a hand. It's like a hand can punch and slap people and hurt people. And if that's all it was doing, you'd be like, hold on, let me get in check with my hand. Let me make sure it doesn't hit anyone. You know what I mean? But a hand can also play the piano and make beautiful music, and it can hug someone and please someone and greet people, and it can do beautiful things. And so I feel like it's part of the journey of the hand to know not to hit people, but to, yes, be good to people, in the same way that it is of the ego to be like, hey, this is a bad use of the ego, and this is a good use of my ego.
Yeah, and continuing to grow and evolve. I love that ego with humility.
The ego evolves with humility. That's how it grows.
Yeah.
One way. There's lots of ways to grow. That's one way.
Coming back to the pushing the boundaries with your music.
I want to say one more thing, because I do feel like that's going to make some people feel uncomfortable. Here's my invitation. My invitation to you is get stoked on your ego, on you being the person that can feel that discomfort and can be like, I can feel that discomfort with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I love the uncomfortable too, because in my human design, I'm the cross of tension. So I'm actually here to create tension so people get uncomfortable. And that's how I help them grow and evolve. And for me, at first, that sounded awful. I'm here to create tension in people, and then they may not resonate with my frequency and lash out at me. That's not great. But then realizing it's through love, it's through compassion.
Tension's amazing. It's like polarity. It's how humans are made, through the magnetism of polarity. It's that tension. It's when you enter into a tantric space with your partner and your lips get really close and there's a lot of tension there. It makes the kiss better. So I totally vibe on that.
And it's the way that you express it, the way that you bring it to the world, just like ego. Right?
Totally.
As you continue to, because we talked about boundaries, continue to push your boundaries with music and create heart-centered experiences, what do you hope your listeners, the people that follow you, come to connect with you, what do you hope that they take away from your performance and your music?
I just hope they take away beauty and bliss and joy and love, and if they need it, catharsis. Yeah. That's what I hope they take away from it. Feeling more connected to themselves and others.
Oh, feeling more connected to themselves and others. Love that. I like to sometimes just like ground into the moment, into the energy, because when two people, like you're your energy, I'm my energy, but when two people come together, it's a different energy. So within this energy, this frequency, is there anything that's coming up that you just want to share from the heart or from the mind or?
Yeah, good question. Let me feel into that. I'll just say, if you're feeling discomfort, play with it and safely experiment through your own creativity and expression, both how to transmute it through expression and how to allow it to transmute itself through stillness.
That gave me goosebumps.
Good.
That was beautiful. For all of you listening, make sure maybe listen to that over again, feel into that, because there was something magical with those words there. So thank you so much for expressing that.
Thank you for instigating the tension within my system to create that sentence.
Thank you so much, Equanimous, for being here. I love being in your energy. I love listening to your music. I love being in your presence. We're so blessed that you're on this planet at this time, doing what you do with everything that you're bringing to the world. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it from all of my heart, not just the bottom, but all of my heart. I'm very grateful. Thank you, Equanimous, so much for being here. So much gratitude for you.
Thank you so much.
Till next time, everyone. Love you all.
My hope is that you walked away with something today that has opened your mind, your heart, or both. Listening to new perspectives not only help you grow and expand, but it helps humanity as a whole. So if you have someone that you feel would benefit from this podcast and you feel that you want to share, please do. Also, would love to connect with you on Instagram, so please follow me at Miranda J. Mitchell. One last thing, if this episode left you with any ahas and insights, take 30 seconds of your time and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. This is the only way I know you are loving the content and connection in this space. And if you want to know more or wondering how we can work together, please go to miranda-mitchell.com, click on the contact in the menu and send me a message. Sending you all love. Till next time.